Want to listen to this episode ad-free? Head on over to our Patreon, patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room. And for an exclusive offer, I am offering you all a free trial to our ITBR professor level, which gives you all of our episodes, all of them unedited, and you can see all of the video footage. And do you know about the ITBR book club? On November 24th, we are actually meeting for the first time in person in Manhattan. We are going to meet at 3:30 p.m. at the Morgan Library and Museum, and we are going to talk about The Personal Librarian. If you are also a Wicked fan, at 12:30 p.m. on the same day, the 24th, a group of us are going to see Wicked at the AMC on 42nd Street in Times Square. So if you want to come and join us, that's where we'll be. Okay, hope I see some of you at the in-person book club at the Morgan Library at 3:30 p.m. Sunday, November 24th. And now, enjoy this episode.
Hey, true crime friends! Welcome back to another episode of True Crime in Academia. As always, I am your host, Married to Pippi. I hope you all have had a wonderful week last week, and I hope you had a restful, relaxing weekend. And that, I mean, aside from the stress of the TikTok ban that we had for 12 hours, I'm still not sure what is going on with that. Who knows if it'll be back tomorrow. I'm gonna try and enjoy it and appreciate it while it's here. For now. But, again, we'll see how long that lasts. Or we'll see how long it takes for them to try and ban it again. Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? But I, for one, am happy that it's back. Speaking of other things that aren't really that important going on in the world, I've started focusing on my sourdough starter again. I started back in November before Thanksgiving and, tried to make a loaf with that and it just wasn't ready. And, then I tried to build it up and then I took a break and now I'm back to it. So with me here, I have chillin' my sourdough starter. So far already in the past couple of hours since I've fed her, she's grown a little bit, but not not much at all. I really don't know at this point anymore what is going on with my sourdough starter. I'm kind of just going along for the ride, going along for the journey. We're gonna keep going at this pace, I think, and just see what happens. Because there were some, obviously all of the TikTok videos were yeah, here's how to do it with what seems like in a day. But then if you look at the comments in those videos, some people will be hey, it just sometimes starters just take a while to build up, take weeks and weeks on end. It's okay. You're not doing anything wrong. It is what it is. And, with my apartment and the heating system that we have here and stuff like that, for one, we're not always temperature controlled. So, I mean, that doesn't help with the process, I don't think either. But then, even when the heat is on, it's very dry heat and, that causes problems in and of itself. So I don't know. I'm just focused on meeting her where she's at and just seeing where we can go from here. The past couple of the past week or so, I've had a damp cloth, or not a cloth, but a damp paper towel over top, and to just kind of help keep in some moisture. Right now, I don't have that on her. I don't know. We're trying with just covering with the lid of my mason jar today, not the full screw-on cap part, but just the little metal part. So we're just gonna see what happens there. So I don't know. I don't know. Moving on to more important issues. Obviously, unless you live under a rock, you don't know what's going on in California. They've been having horrific fires going on in LA and the Palisades. So in the description, I will have links for ways that you can help and donate and things like that. Obviously, for any celebrities that you care about who have maybe lost their homes, obviously stream their stuff. You can help them in that way. But, to help the more local citizens, the more everyday person, like I said, go to those links and you can help them that way. Before we get into episode 2 of Death in the Dorms, season 2, brought to you by Hulu and ABC News Studios, not NBC, like I had said last week. I should have verified, like double, triple checked, or because I feel like I did, but then also I think my brain just saw the ABC, because the ABC part is so small and their logos are like, they're not similar, but they're close enough that at first glance I'm just like letters. And that's what my brain registers first. So I saw the BC and the big N and just was like, oh, it's NBC. No, it's ABC News Studios and Hulu that have created the Death in the Dorm series. So I apologize for having gotten that wrong, considering I did this last year when they had season 1. So quite embarrassing. But anyway, we are going to take a quick break, and then when we get back, we will get into episode 2 of season 2 of the Death in the Dorms.
Do you ever think to yourself, wait, how does Andrew know about so many of the newest and current LGBTQ books? Well, my friends at the Gay and Lesbian Review have an amazing magazine. The Gay and Lesbian Review is a bi-monthly magazine, and it's always centered around a theme. So, for example, their November and December issue is called the Gossip Issue. And it features some authors who actually have been on the Ivory Tower Boiler Room, like Ignacio Darnad, who runs the Breaking the Gay Code in R Instagram account. And I love that he's looking at Lorca and Dali in his newest article for the Gay and Lesbian Review. There's articles about D.H. Lawrence, about sodomy in the 1770s. Frank Rizzo, who is a theater critic, has an article, and I actually just recorded an episode with him. I can't wait for you all to hear it. We talk and gush about queer theater from the 1970s until the current day. The Gay and Lesbian Review has given me a promo code that I want you all to use. Go to glreview.org, glreview.org, type in promo code ITBR50 when you subscribe, and you will get 50% off your digital or print edition. I get the print edition because I just love to have a physical copy of the magazine. And the Gossip Issue, it's so exciting. My favorite Victorian author, Oscar Wilde, is featured on the cover holding a sunflower. So if you want the newest LGBTQ literature, film, TV, theater recommendations, you need the Gay and Lesbian Review. I hope you enjoy your reading, and please let me know if you are reading the Gay and Lesbian Review, what article you really liked, because I'll shout you out, and I'll even let the editors know, because I know they always want to know what the Ivory Tower Boiler Room audience is reading when they do get a Gay and Lesbian Review subscription. Okay, enjoy your reading.
Hayley Anderson was born on May 9th, 1995, in Salisbury, New York. She was always described by her family and friends as curious, with a sense of humor, tenacious, athletic, extremely intelligent. She had been on the honor roll multiple times and on multiple honor rolls. She was also described as creative and independent in spirit, and just an overall goody two shoes. Like, a lot of her friends described her as saying, like, in their teen years when most of them were trying to sneak out and go to parties, like, she was at home and being a tutor and studying and, helping others in that way. Overall, Hayley had a normal, healthy, loving childhood. At 14, though, her parents did divorce, and it was difficult for her, but it made her really close with her mom, Karen. Now, if you watch this episode of Death in the Dorms, you will be able to see her in, obviously, the episode. And, not that it necessarily means anything. Hayley's father wasn't in it, so I'm my curious brain, is wondering what type of relationship maybe she had with her father, or, if he left. But either way, Karen is just incredible, and I love her, and we'll get to an example of it later on. And I mean, aside from everything that she's been through and how she comes out on the other side of it, I mean, it's just incredible to begin with. But again, there are other things that we'll touch on later in this episode. As it came time for Hayley to start looking at colleges, her and her mom have visited Binghamton University in Binghamton, New York. And immediately, Hayley fell in love with the campus and just the academic programs there and everything. So she kind of set her heart on it. And of course, she got in. Hayley thrived at Binghamton University, and she thrived on being away and really taking the time to figure herself out and really putting herself all out there and into her, not just her academics, but her social life. Now, for the first couple years, she wasn't sure what she wanted her major to be. But sophomore year, she decided that she wanted to give nursing a shot. So she applied to the nursing school at Binghamton called the Decker Nursing School, and she got in her junior year, which I think is when they normally accept them. It didn't say, but either way, she was able to get in. Hayley immediately fell in love with the nursing program, and she eventually decided to apply for an externship. So for those of you who don't know, because I didn't even know this either, according to Indeed.com, externships are when you apply to shadow an employee and basically learn about the job. And in some instances, you are allowed to assist with tasks and things like that. But the goal is more about observing and learning about the job that way versus an internship when, you're kind of thrown into it and learning everything, which I guess for the medical field, I guess that makes more sense, especially with someone just freshly in nursing school. But yeah, so she applied at this place called Northwell, and again, she got in. Now, while she was in her sophomore year at Binghamton, she met a guy named Kevin, and all of her friends really, really liked him. They thought he was super nice, really cute, and just that the two of them really had a good relationship, and that he was just always super supportive for her, or supportive of her, and, was just always doing things for her and stuff like that. However, as time went on and graduation's kind of approaching, she realizes that she doesn't really want to be in a relationship and doesn't want to be tied down. I mean, she has feelings for Kevin, but at the same time, she just wanted to meet new people and, just, like I said, not be tied down by anyone, especially with a career, right in front of her. Now, even though they kind of put a pause on their relationship, they still talk to each other. They still hang out. They're texting, things like that. So they kind of have a more on again, off again situation. But again, she was very transparent about not wanting anything serious and, just wanting to date around. And that's totally fine and 1,000% normal for a college girl her age. In nursing school, Hayley also meets this guy named Orlando Tercero, and first it just starts out as purely a friendship, the two of them, but it eventually turns romantic during this on and off period that she has going on with Kevin. Now, Kevin and Orlando were actually in the same fraternity, and aside from that, they also were both Spanish speaking, which isn't necessarily an important fact. I just thought it was interesting. I mean, they include it in the episode. But again, like I said, it's not a fact that goes anywhere. But just, fun fact. Dating life aside, though, Hayley just excels and thrives in school, nursing school, and her externship. And because of this actually lines her up at a job at Northwell, where she has her externship. And this is just pending her graduation and her passing her nursing boards. So, I mean, as someone who graduated college and it took them a few years to be able to get a job in a field related to my degree, it's just, it takes a while. Some people don't even, use their degrees at all. Sometimes they wind up in completely different fields. So the fact that granted, the medical field is very specified. It's not like, my degree, like writing or business or anything like that, where you could work in multiple fields or your experience could be translated into different types of positions. Obviously with the medical field, that's completely different and totally specialized. But the fact that, again, that she was able to get a job and had a job ready for her, is just incredible and just shows how hardworking and motivated she was to set up her life and really just start living it once she graduated. On March 6, 2018, Hayley spoke to her mom, Karen, for the last time. That Thursday, which was 2 days later, she was supposed to attend a friend's poetry reading, but she never showed, which wasn't like her at all. So her roommates and friends just kept calling her, but she never answered, and they were really starting to get concerned. So the next day, her friends and roommates look on the Find My Friend app, and they're able to find her phone. And they see that it's at 23 Oak Street, which is around the corner at Orlando's apartment. So her roommates go there, they knock on the door, ring the doorbell, do all the things. No one answers. So because they're so concerned, and I love that they do this, even though technically one could argue this is breaking and entering, they look around, they find an open window, and they open it and go in. Because, they're concerned for their friend. And as we're going to see, rightfully so. So they go into the house. They go into one of the rooms. And inside, they find their friend Hayley's lifeless body in Orlando's room on his bed. Police have the 911 call that the roommates made coming in at about 12:15. Now, I'm not exactly sure why, but it seems like once that they confirm that Hayley is in fact dead, police can't actually go in and start processing the place until they get a search warrant. I'm not sure if that's just something that happens in New York. I'm not sure if there is something more that they couldn't explain at this point. They didn't really explain it, so they kind of just said, yeah, we couldn't go in the house because we were waiting for a search warrant to be processed. Regardless, police are able to get the search warrant pretty quickly and are able to go in within a few hours. So a couple of things that they noticed that were off. The bookshelf that was in the dining room seemed to be askew. There had been a necktie that was being held up by 3 eye hooks that were screwed into the wall. And then there was another chair close by, because the eye hooks were above a door frame, and then there was another chair kind of askew underneath the door frame in towards the next room. They also found some gauze with some bloodstains on it. Now, to police, this suggests that someone made a suicide attempt and also probably really hurt themselves and tried to patch themselves up afterwards. When they go and examine Hayley, they find that she's in almost a seated position on the bed. And aside from her positioning, one of the other things that they notice immediately is that there is bruising around her neck area. But as they get closer and examine her face, they can see that there is petechial hemorrhaging, which is usually either a telltale sign of strangulation or suffocation. But basically, anytime the cause of death involves not being able to breathe. Next to the bed was also a handwritten note written in Spanish. And from the episode, this is what the gist of the note was. I'm really sorry about this. I never felt I could be capable of doing this, Father. I'll see you soon. I'm sorry. This is stupid. I am sorry. End quote. So just a little background on Orlando. So he was born in Miami, but he actually has dual citizenship with the U.S. and Nicaragua. So it seems like for his whole childhood, he grew up like in Miami, but his sister lives in Queens, and his parents moved back to Nicaragua. And his father was a doctor who sadly passed away, and which was kind of why he wanted to become a nurse in the first place and enter the medical field. So even though he doesn't outright say like that he killed Hayley, police are kind of seeing this as a suicide note / sort of admission to what he's done based off of everything that they can see in the apartment. You know, they can see the evidence of a suicide attempt. This is clearly a letter, you know, and again, given that his father is dead and the fact that he's saying, I will see you soon, you know, kind of suggests that one is planning on taking their own life. So even though it is not the strongest piece of evidence, it still gives police an insight as to what possibly could have happened after Hayley was murdered. At around 4 p.m. that same day, March 9th, Karen pulls home from work. She notices that there is a big black car on her drive, like on her street, but doesn't try to think too much of it. She just sees two guys in suits and is kind of just like, oh man, it seems like maybe one of the neighbors is in trouble. Something's going on. You know, what is it? But, you know, she tries to move on with her day. She starts feeding her dogs, and then she sees them get out of the car and start walking up her driveway. Now, this is one of the reasons why I love Karen, because again, like, it's such a shame because at one point in the documentary, she says, like, I didn't even know that they couldn't get a hold of her. And not that that was their responsibility. And in a little bit, we're going to get into the timeline. So you'll kind of see that it was a little bit difficult for them just for everything that was happening and things like that. But basically, she had no idea that anyone couldn't get in touch with her daughter. So when they come up, she's just assuming, you know, she doesn't think anything's wrong with Hayley. So she just decides that she's going to go right outside as they come up, and she's like, can I help you? And, you know, they're like, yeah, we need to talk to you. And she's like, well, can we talk out here? And they're like, no, we would rather like talk inside. So they take her, or she goes inside, she lets them in, and they, you know, kind of all congregate in the dining room. They sit down and, you know, they tell her the most unimaginable, horrific news any parent can hear. I mean, not only have they forever lost their child, it was done in such a horrific, manner that, no one would ever wish upon another human being. So, I can't even imagine. And she's adorable. She says that they were the nicest guys ever. And, they wouldn't leave until, one of my friends came over. And, as much as nice as they were, I just wanted them to go. Because she said she wanted to grieve and not do it in front of strangers. Soon, one by one, the news is getting out of Hayley's death, and her two childhood best friends, Christina and Sydney, once they hear the news, they just know immediately in their gut that Orlando was the one who was responsible.
Are you currently looking for your next great read and you just don't know where to search? Well, I have a publisher for you. They are called Broadview Press. They're celebrating their 40-year anniversary. Happy anniversary, Broadview. And they are an independent publisher of humanities books. Just in time for the Wicked film, Broadview Press has an edition of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz with the original illustrations. I was talking with Dylan from Broadview Press, and I always love talking with her because she informs me of what new books they're about to release. And guess what? Just in time for spooky season in the fall, they have a vampire literature anthology that collects so many different short stories that explored the vampire myth and just how this origin story of the vampire came to be in our culture. So I hope you get your hands on those books. And Dylan told me there is an exclusive code for all ITBR listeners. You get 20% off all of your Broadview Press orders. Broadviewpress.com. Go choose your books. Type in Ivory Tower in the discount code section and you will get 20% off. Make sure you follow Broadview Press to see all the new books that they are about to publish on Instagram at Broadview Press. Enjoy your reading, everyone.
On September 16th, 2017, so about 6 months before Hayley's murder, Hayley sends a Snapchat to both Sydney and Christina, and in it she's walking around her car and she's explaining to them that all 4 of her tires have been slashed. She then tells them that she suspects that it's Orlando because she's on a break with him right now and she's kind of dating Kevin again and other people, but Kevin's back in the picture and Orlando is just super jealous and that she had actually been with Kevin that night before. Hayley's friends convince her to go and file a police report, and when she does, she decides to give them Orlando's name as the person that she suspects who did this. But she is hesitant to press charges against him. Now, because of the dollar amount of damage done to her car, just all 4 tires being slashed, the crime would have been considered a felony and thus really would have ruined his chances of becoming a nurse. And because Hayley had a really kind heart and was just a very empathetic person, and again, this is also someone she cares about. She, it's not just some random person, it's someone she trusted, someone she had dated, who had seen romantically at one point, and their relationship started off as a friendship, there's a lot more to it, so she cares a lot more about the outcome of what happens to him. But in the meantime, Orlando actually admits that he slashed all of her tires and gives her money for the tires to be replaced. And to everyone, to her mom and to her friends, Hayley was kind of I handled it. It's fine. He showed some responsibility for his actions, and we're kind of just going to move on from there. So, her time with Kevin is kind of, they're off again at this point, with all of the issues. And aside from the whole tire slashing situation, he would kind of just poke his way and just cause problems for them consistently. So at this point, they are off at this point. And she's kind of on with Orlando. Like, the two were never boyfriend and girlfriend. They always kind of had like a little, like a situationship kind of a thing. But again, very on and off in nature. But this time that they're on, he just becomes very controlling and is constantly asking where she is and is getting jealous of when she's hanging out with her friends and would show up to her apartment unannounced, and after being asked multiple times to leave, would just refuse and like hang out on the front porch area. And yeah, so, then he would also do things like, from a psychological standpoint, he would also like use his past and like certain past traumas of his, to manipulate her into forgiving him and kind of, using that as a way to excuse his behavior. And sadly, I think Hayley just wanted to see the best in him. So she kind of just didn't take these things, I think, as seriously and wanted to believe that he was a good person. On March 10th, Hayley's autopsy is performed. And in addition to the bruising on the neck, petechial hemorrhaging in the face, there was also petechial hemorrhaging on the lungs. The forensic pathologist who conducted the autopsy concluded that the cause of death was due to manual strangulation and officially ruled Hayley's death a homicide. Police then reach out and make contact with Orlando's sister, who lives in Queens. And she tells the police about the alarming text messages that she's getting, or that she had gotten from her brother, the morning when Hayley was found. The text message were saying things like that he was a failure and really putting himself down, just things that just wouldn't be like him. And ultimately that he left his car at JFK Airport. Now, police are already assuming that if his car is at JFK, he probably got on a plane. So they pull some favors, some of the personnel working on the case pull some favors with some other agencies, and eventually find out that Orlando had gotten on a plane and had just left U.S. airspace and was headed, of course, for Nicaragua. Now, knowing that he's not there, there's not much police can do. All they can do is build their case against him and have it ready for the prosecution. So they look at the surveillance footage from Orlando's actual apartment. It looks like they might have had some sort of Ring camera setup thing. And the apartment is really just this 2-story brown shingled house. He lived there with a couple other college students from Binghamton. So, it wasn't just his place. Like, he had a room there. And again, he was part of a fraternity. I'm not sure if that was not necessarily that the housing was fraternity affiliated, but if they were all in the same fraternity, brothers living in that house. But regardless, it's where Orlando was living. So police look through the camera footage and they notice on March 8th at 3:14 approximately a.m., Orlando is seen entering the apartment with none other than Hayley. And much like in Jenna Burley's case, Hayley was seen entering the apartment, but she is never seen leaving. In fact, she is never seen alive again. Orlando, however, is seen multiple times coming and going from the apartment. But at 8:30, it's obvious that he is leaving with his luggage and is heading for the airport. police are able to verify like what he's wearing and his image and everything going on in that footage with footage from the airport. And at the airport, they can even see more clearly that he has a bandage on his head, which again, police are like, oh, that must be from like the bloody gauze that we had seen. Like this must be the injury that all of that is from. So with all of this circumstantial evidence, Orlando is like really the person of interest at this point. So an international manhunt is launched. And on March 13th, Orlando is spotted at a hospital in Nicaragua. And someone there saw him while he was getting treatment. And the police in Nicaragua show up and arrest him outside of the hospital. The DA's office in Broome County had a warrant out for his return, and the whole extradition process starts. In August of 2019, though, it is decided that Orlando is not going to be extradited because he has dual citizenship and the current treaties that are in place between the United States and Nicaragua. They have the option to try him there, or he can be brought back to the U.S. for trial. So Nicaragua decides, they make it very clear to the prosecution in Broome County that Orlando is going to be tried in Nicaragua because he is a citizen. Orlando is charged with femicide. Now, in the most basic of terms, femicide is homicide, but with specific intent to harm a woman/female. Now, in New York, he just would have been charged with second-degree murder, which is, intentional killing without premeditation. From what I gathered from the documentary and also from just the little bit of research that I did on femicide, it seems that prior relationships, more like kind of like domestic violence type cases, are kind of like when these charges come in of femicide in other countries, that is. So that's why they charged him with that. The DA in Broome County was able to be at the trial via video chat. I think they specifically used Skype. That was the popular one at the time. And while the DA in Broome County kind of just assisted, the prosecutor in Nicaragua really was driving the case. Like the prosecutors obviously in Broome County weren't allowed to ask, witnesses questions and things like that. Like that was only up to the Nicaragua prosecutor. But, like I said, Broome DA was involved a little bit and gotten to witness the entire thing. Throughout the entire court process, though, Orlando never really reacts and never really shows any signs of remorse. So it's not an entire admission that someone did this in cold blood and isn't sorry, but, it's not a great look either. While the prosecution, led by a female lawyer in Nicaragua, really championed for Hayley, the defense really didn't have that good of an excuse. They tried to use the insanity plea, and they tried to use his being under the influence of alcohol as, part of his defense, and it wasn't good. Now, in Nicaragua, the judge has the authority to make the verdict. So once the case was over, or once the closing arguments were concluded, the judge went and deliberated for about a half hour to an hour. And when she came back, she found Orlando guilty of femicide and sentenced him to the maximum sentence of 30 years in prison. At the time the episode was released, there was still a warrant out for Orlando to have to basically be extradited and face trial in the United States, and that the Broome County DA's office is prepared and, ready to try him if needed. And if needed is kind of basically, from my understanding, again, that if say he's let out in 30 years, if he tries to come back to the United States, if they want to press charges against him and further punish him that way, they believe that they could be able to do that. If he gets out early, if they, whatever, basically, if at any point at any time they feel that he needs to be tried in the United States, they are ready to do so if they have to. And their argument is that it wouldn't be double jeopardy because he was tried in a completely different country, and therefore the rules of double jeopardy wouldn't apply. Since Hayley's death, Hayley's friends and family have done different things to honor Hayley's memory. A few of her friends are working at RAINN Foundation. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, domestic abuse, please call the RAINN organization at 1-800-656-HOPE, HOPE. I will have that number in the comments or in the description below as well. But aside from that, her mother, Karen, is also an advocate and bringing awareness to femicide and is trying to bring that into law. I swear, I'm always just so impressed and just admire the strength of the family and friends of people who lose someone so tragically and so horrifically like this, and that they can try and do some good with it. I mean, I know I've said this on the podcast before, but I feel like they have every right to just hide and live their lives as quietly and peacefully as they want to, and not have to ever be reminded or have to face that horrific memory over and over and over again. So, the fact that they put themselves in these positions because they want change so that, what happened to their loved ones doesn't happen to anyone else, I think is just absolutely incredible. That is all I have for you, my loves. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday night and have a great weekend. I will do my best to survive. Don't forget to follow True Crime in Academia on social media at True Crime in Academia on Instagram and Threads, and maybe TikTok. Who knows? TikTok might be banned again by the time this episode is released. Who knows? Also, don't forget to go on to patreon.com/Ivory Tower Boiler Room and become a subscriber if you would like to listen to this episode and all True Crime in Academia episodes ad-free. Until next time, my loves, I will see you all later.
So you all have heard me talk about my friend Christian Garcia's excellent podcast called That Old Gay Classic Cinema. Well, just in time for spooky season, everything fall and gothic, he just had on friend of the show, Joseph Federico, to talk about Dracula. Yes, Dracula starring Bela Lugosi. So you can now listen to that episode wherever you get your podcast, like Spotify or Apple. And you might have seen I've been releasing some That Old Gay Classic Cinema episodes on the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. You can now listen to his premiere episode that I got to talk about The Sound of Music with him, which I really loves that I was on the inaugural episode. Thank you, Christian. Also, we released his Gone with the Wind episode, and we only released part 1. So to listen to part 2, you have to head over to his podcast. So if you love all things classic cinema and you've wondered, wait, what makes some classic cinema just really queer? Like, it actually sometimes is more homoerotic than current contemporary films. You want to listen to Christian's podcast. And he also has a special Wizard of Oz episode that I absolutely fan over. So listen to That Old Gay Classic Cinema Apple, Spotify, and he's on YouTube as well. I hope you all enjoy it.